Once, I was filled with great anticipation of stepping into the hall of marriage with my fiancé. However, I never expected that he would secretly collude with my scheming green tea-like girlfriend. In the terrifying moment when zombies were running amok, he heartlessly pushed me out of the door, leaving me to become the prey of the zombies. When I regained consciousness again, I astonishingly found that I had been miraculously reborn this time. Fate had given me a chance to start anew. I secretly determined that I must plan carefully and avoid repeating the same mistakes. I rented the house directly opposite his in advance. I squandered all the betrothal gifts he gave me and the money for the decoration of the bridal house that he coaxed me into saving with his sweet words, and used all the money to stockpile supplies, just to seek a glimmer of hope for survival in the impending disaster. Now, the crisis of the zombies has quietly arrived again, and I can finally lie on the balcony leisurely, watching that shameless couple affectionately interacting with each other in this apocalyptic world with a cold eye. In the early morning, I woke up with a start from the bed in a trance. I thought I had just experienced a terrifying nightmare. In that dreadful dream, my limbs were frantically gnawed by the zombies, leaving only a bloody and blurry mass of flesh. My intestines were also brutally dragged out of my abdominal cavity, and the air was filled with an overwhelming and disgusting smell of blood and putrid corpses. I rotted miserably like a piece of putrid meat in the dim corridor, gradually losing the last trace of my life breath, in the endless excruciating pain. So much so that when I suddenly woke up at this moment, I could still feel the piercing neural pain lingering all over my body, as if the limbs I had lost in the dream could really no longer move. "Honey, what's wrong? Did you have a nightmare?" My fiancé Li Xiao, who was lying beside me leisurely playing with his phone, saw me motionless and trembling all over, and reached out his hand to embrace me. When I saw Li Xiao's familiar face, a strong feeling of nausea welled up in my heart. Finally, my hand regained its sensation, and my first reaction was to push him away forcefully. He was irritated by my sudden abnormal behavior, but soon regained his composure and put on a false smile on his face. He said, "Honey, I have something to do and need to go out today. Is there anything you want to eat? I'll bring it back for you in the evening." When I heard his words, I was startled and in a hurry. I picked up my phone to check the time. It was 8 June. This familiar time, and these seemingly familiar words, it turned out that all of this was not a dream. Instead, after my death, I was reborn and actually returned to the day before the outbreak of the zombie crisis. Seeing me in a daze while holding the phone, Li Xiao gently shook me and reminded, "The people from the decoration company will come to sign the contract at around 10 o'clock later. Remember to pay the money." Li Xiao purchased a house with a full payment before marriage, which is the one I have moved in, and lived with him now. When we were discussing marriage at the beginning, he was so eloquent that he kept brainwashing me. "You don't have parents in the future. I will be your closest relative. Aren't all these funds our joint property? Your name will be added to the property certificate. After marriage, this is also your house. It's the same whether you pay the money earlier or later. If the house is decorated earlier, we can move in earlier. Don't you think so?" Under the offensive of his sweet words, I was somewhat swayed in my heart. Later, in order to show his so-called sincerity of regarding me as a family member, he took the initiative to transfer yuan of the betrothal gifts to me first. It was exactly this move that successfully dispelled my last misgiving. Without conducting any investigation into the decoration company he found, I directly signed the contract and paid an upfront payment of yuan. But who could have imagined that this so-called decoration company was actually a shell company run by his brother? After the yuan passed through the hands of his brother Yang Jia, only a few tens of thousands of yuan were left as the so-called hard work fees. The remaining money all went into Li Xiao's pocket. Li Xiao not only swindled all the savings I had accumulated from years of working with the pig butchering scam method, but also had an affair with my green tea-like girlfriend Cheng Shuangshuang behind my back. After the zombie outbreak, Cheng Shuangshuang was trapped in my house. By chance, I detected the ambiguous relationship between them, so I secretly investigated Li Xiao's mobile phone. I didn't know until I checked it, and I was shocked. The content in the mobile phone made my heart turn cold, full of explosive news of their betrayal of me. In my previous life, my sincere heart was trampled on and played with like garbage by these two despicable and shameless people. Before I had the chance to settle accounts with them, they, without hesitation, pushed me out of the door to become the food of the zombies in order to seize the supplies, and I died a miserable death in an extremely desperate way. And in this life, if I don't avenge this deep hatred, how can I forgive myself? Seeing my stiff face, Li Xiao thought I was throwing a waking temper tantrum, and reminded me again. I came back to my senses, suppressed the anger in my heart forcefully, and casually perfunctorily replied a few words. He didn't notice anything unusual, and went out after packing his things. Standing by the balcony, I watched his car slowly drive out of the community, and I secretly breathed a sigh of relief in my heart. Subsequently, I quickly stuffed some important items and clothes that I had left in Li Xiao's house into the suitcase, and also stuffed the drone he bought into it. Then I went out immediately. I walked straight towards the security booth at the gate of the community. Without hesitation, there is a notice board set up by the property management at the security booth. Usually, the property owners will post some lost and found notices or rental information on it. When I passed by while running before, I would always take a look at it out of habit. Among the numerous rental information, I quickly found the rental notice that I had an impression of and dialed the phone number on it without hesitation. Hello, is this Miss Zhang? I want to rent your house. Are you available to sign the contract now? The house for rent on Miss Zhang's notice was exactly opposite Li Xiao's house. Since the two buildings were not too far apart, I inadvertently noticed it when the tenant opposite moved out last weekend. While I was on the balcony, Miss Zhang seemed to also live in this community. After hanging up my phone, she came over quickly. When she saw me coming to view the house with a suitcase in my hand, she took the initiative to show concern for my situation. I didn't hide it, and frankly told her that my fiancé had cheated on me, and we had broken up. And since I had no parents and nowhere to go, I could only move out and live alone. 3. Out of empathy between women, she took the initiative to offer to rent the house to me with a 500 yuan discount and said to me, I'm older than you. You can call me Sister Yao from now on. My elderly family members have come to live with me, and this house is not big enough. So I bought a larger one opposite, in Unit C, room 1701. It's very close. It's fate that we've met. If you have any problems in the future, come to me. You can also come to my place for a meal anytime. Sister Yao exuded the sincerity and enthusiasm characteristic of northern women. I was very satisfied with both her and the house. We quickly signed the contract and added each other on WeChat. Just as she was about to hand me the key and leave, after a moment of thought, I held her back and said, Sister Yao, if you trust me, reinforce the security measures of your house today, and stock up on more food, water, and daily necessities at home. There might be a major upheaval tomorrow. Sister Yao was taken aback, and asked me what the major upheaval meant, and how I knew about it. I could only say that I had learned it through some connections, and it was not very convenient to disclose the details. Perhaps she had a natural trust in me. She simply said okay, and then told me to take good care of myself before leaving in a hurry. I immediately made an appointment for a door-changing master to come over, and replaced the front door of the house with a thickened and strengthened anti-theft door. At this time, an unknown number called. I guessed that it was the decoration company, sent by Li Xiao. I pressed the answer button. Hello, is this Miss Xu? I'm Xiao Yang from the decoration company. I'm here to sign the contract with you. I've been pressing your doorbell for a long time, but there's no response. Could you please open the door? I'm really sorry, I replied in an apologetic tone. I had some urgent matters and went out temporarily. How about you come back in an hour? The person on the phone readily agreed, saying, okay. After the master changed the door, I secretly gave him some money, and asked him to secretly change the lock of the door in the public passage for me. Each floor of this building has 2 households served by 1 elevator. If the lock of the door in the public passage is locked, it's like I have 2 doors, a double insurance. As soon as the door-changing master left, the master I had made an appointment with to change the anti-theft net and windows arrived. He was a rather honest-looking master. He shook the invisible anti-theft net that had already been installed on the balcony and said to me, I think the one you have installed now is quite good. Most people install this kind of invisible one. The fully enclosed type you want affects the aesthetics, is not well ventilated, and is not convenient for drying clothes. Encountering such an honest person, I could only come up with an excuse on the spot. There was a theft in this community before. The family that was burglarized also installed this kind of invisible anti-theft net, and it couldn't stop the thieves at all. Now every night when I sleep, I seem to hear someone cutting the anti-theft net. I'm a bit nervous. I'd better enclose the balcony for peace of mind. After hearing what I said, the master understood my other request of changing all the glass to bullet-proof glass and pasting one-way film, and didn't ask any more questions. He measured the size and said he would go back to the store to prepare the materials, and could come back in the afternoon to install them for me. After seeing off the 2 masters, I rushed to the supermarket non-stop, ready for a big shopping spree. Just as I arrived at the entrance of Sam's Club, I received another call from Yang Jia. Miss Xu, have you arrived home? Oh, I haven't finished my business yet. How about you wait for me for another hour? The person on the phone sounded obviously displeased, and hung up the phone after answering a few words. 4. Holding the card with 600,000 yuan, I entered the wholesale-style supermarket. The pent-up anger in my heart, since I woke up in the morning, suddenly found an outlet. I found a staff member, indicating that I was sent by the company's purchasing department to purchase employee welfare items, and asked him to help pull a cart and pick up the goods according to what I selected. I didn't know how long the long-term battle ahead would last. To ensure that I wouldn't starve to death, most of the food I selected was non-perishable. Instant noodles/rice noodles/rice sticks, self-heating hot pot/rice, meat cans, fruit cans, vegetable cans, dried meat, compressed biscuits, small breads, rice flour, various seasonings and sauces, peanut oil, Considering the power supply problem, I had already made an appointment for a master to come to my house in the afternoon to install 3 solar panels. It should be almost enough to power the 2 newly bought freezers later. So I added some refrigerated foods, frozen dumplings, steaks, fish steaks, chicken. The original refrigerator in the house was intended to store some fresh vegetables and fruits. Chinese cabbages, onions, oranges, apples, corn, potatoes. When passing by the snack area, I also picked up some of my favorite snacks, especially sweet ones. Potato chips, chocolates of various flavors, all kinds of candies, instant milk tea, instant coffee. After basically buying all the food, since I had newly rented the house and had almost no daily necessities, I had to buy all kinds of them. Bedding, quilts, electric blankets, slippers, and consumable items such as toothpaste, toothbrushes, body wash, shampoo, laundry detergent, tissues, sanitary napkins. I checked the item list I had made in advance. These were almost all the survival supplies. Suddenly, I remembered that I hadn't bought a high-powered telescope. This thing was really the key point. Hee. After getting all the things, the staff member led me through the bulk purchase checkout channel and paid the home delivery fee, and the goods were directly delivered to my home. After coming out of the supermarket, when I was packing common medicines in a pharmacy, Yang Jia called me for the 3rd time. As soon as I answered, I immediately pretended to be in a hurry. Mr. Yang, right? I was just about to call you back. Just now, I found that my bank card had been stolen and used, and the password was entered incorrectly, and it has been frozen. I'm queuing up at the bank waiting to deal with it. How about you come back tomorrow morning? I'm really sorry for making you run around today. How about I pay you an extra 5,000 yuan as hard work fees tomorrow? Is that okay? When I was saying the first half of the sentence, Yang Jia on the phone remained silent. It felt like he was about to explode with anger. But after I finished the second half of the sentence, he immediately changed his tone to a warm one. It's not hard work at all. It should be. Then I'll come back at the same time tomorrow morning. You should quickly deal with the bank card matter first. After hanging up the phone, I secretly laughed in my heart. Who can act? Do only you, Yang Jia, and Li Xiao know how to act? 5. Although the supplies were almost all bought, I still felt very uneasy in my heart. In my previous life, I was defenseless and was controlled by that shameless couple. In this life, if they discover me and the house full of supplies opposite, they will definitely have even more malicious intentions. After much thought, I decided to prepare some hardcore defensive tools. Firstly, they could defend against the attacks of zombies. And secondly, they could prevent me from being counter-killed by that couple. I took a taxi to the decoration market and entered a hardware store, where I bought a high-voltage electric shock baton, a rechargeable extra, long telescopic pruning saw, and iron wire. With these 2 things, if that couple dares to approach me, I dare to electrocute them until they're disabled and cut off their heads. After buying these, I looked at my watch. It was almost time for the installation master to come. After paying the home delivery fee to the boss, I started taking a taxi back. In the car, I called several water delivery stations near my home, a total of more than 200 barrels of water. I paid extra money and asked them to deliver all the water to my home. When I arrived at the door of my house, I found that the master and the workers filled the entire corridor, all waiting for me with the materials. I quickly apologized and opened the door to let them in for installation. After the workers finished the installation and left, I sorted out the delivered supplies. The 2 large rooms were already filled to the brim, and the extra ones could only be placed in the living room. By the time I finished all these things, it was already dark. There were more than 20 missed calls on my phone. More than a dozen were from Li Xiao, and several were from my green tea, like girlfriend Cheng Shuangshuang. I locked the door, started taking the elevator downstairs, and called Cheng Shuangshuang back while walking. Hello Shuangshuang. I was busy just now, and didn't hear the phone. What's wrong? On the phone, Cheng Shuangshuang's voice was soft and coquettish, with a sobbing tone. Whoa, Ying, I had a fight with my boyfriend. I'm so depressed and on show right now. The first person I thought of was you. Men are really not as good as sisters. Whoa. I have to say that Cheng Shuangshuang was really good at showing weakness and providing emotional value. For someone like me who had lacked parents and sisters since childhood, what I truly longed for in my heart was an intimate relationship with someone all the time. So in my previous life, as long as Cheng Shuangshuang whined in front of me, I couldn't help but do anything for her. Low-level green tea girls only know how to coax men, while high-level green tea girls are simply psychologists who can charm both men and women. After listening to her words, I also pretended to be very worried. Then come and sleep at my place tonight? Don't stay with that jerk. Cheng Shuangshuang was still crying on the phone. But it's so late now, and it's so dark outside. I'm afraid to take a taxi alone. I immediately said, I'll take a taxi to pick you up right now. If she really didn't dare to come, wouldn't my script lack a leading lady? I had to pick her up. Definitely. 6. As soon as I opened the door of my house, Li Xiao immediately stood up from the sofa in the living room, with an obvious low-pressure atmosphere around him. But when he saw Cheng Shuangshuang behind me, his mood seemed to balance out, and his tone even had a hint of doting when he spoke. Oh, I was wondering why I couldn't get through to your phone. So you were with her? Oh, Li Xiao, are you really talking to me? Isn't it that Cheng Shuangshuang asked you to break up with me? But you haven't got the money yet and don't want to. And then she didn't reply to your WeChat messages or answer your calls. So you got anxious and angry and started bombarding my phone. Planning to take out your anger on me? Guess how accurate I am. However, this green tea girl Ching Shuang Shuang. She gives you a slap. And then wants to give you a sweet date. She even asked me to pick her up. Are you happy now, you scumbag? Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Ching Shuang Shuang pouting at him diagonally behind me. Li Xiao immediately awkwardly shifted his gaze to other places. It was so obvious. What on earth was I blinded by in my previous life that I couldn't see these details at all? Li Xiao pretended to be nonchalant and asked me, have you dealt with the bank card theft? I pretended to be very distressed. No. By the time it was my turn, the person in charge had already left work. But the teller promised to reserve the first number for me tomorrow morning. I'll go to the bank to queue up and handle it early tomorrow morning. Hearing this, Li Xiao didn't know what else to say, and turned around to lie on the sofa and play with his phone. I turned to Ching Shuang Shuang and said, it's very late. You go take a shower first. The guest room has always been reserved for you. I changed the new bed sheets and quilt covers a few days ago. Ching Shuang Shuang happily rushed over and kissed me on the face several times. I love you the most, Ying Ying. You're my closest and dearest sister in this life. In my heart, you always come first, and my mom can only come second. Although I rolled my eyes in my heart, on the surface, I still showed my usual pleasure, hugging her and smiling sweetly. I love you the most too, Shuang Shuang. You come first, and Li Xiao comes second. You'll die first and Li Xiao will die second. Are you satisfied with this arrangement? Li Xiao glanced at us and joked. Your sister's words are so cheesy. I'm about to throw up, honey. Really? Aren't you the one who loves it when this slutty girl coquettishly calls you on WeChat? Honey, I can't sleep. Honey, I really want to hug you. Honey, will you kiss me more next time? When Ching Shuang Shuang heard Li Xiao call me honey, she immediately let go of me and walked straight to the bathroom. Does this bitch still have the nerve to be jealous in front of me? Just hold on a little longer, Shuing. Just hold on a little longer. The happier this shameless couple is now, the uglier they will cry later. 7. At 4 a.m., when people enter a deep sleep period, I opened my eyes excitedly. I quietly got out of bed, went to the utility room, and slowly pushed the largest suitcase to the side of the refrigerator and opened it. I slowly opened the refrigerator door and put the food into the suitcase, one by one, until all the things in the refrigerator were emptied. Then I stuffed all the edible things in the kitchen and the living room into the suitcase until it was full. I closed it and fastened the locks. Just as I was about to lift the suitcase lying on the ground and push it towards the door, there came a click, the sound of the doorknob of the master bedroom being turned. Damn it! Li Xiao woke up. My heart sank. I dropped the suitcase and sidled into the gap between the refrigerator and the wall. Almost at the same time, Li Xiao opened the door and walked out, gently closing the door by turning the handle. Did he hear my noise and get up to check? From the position where he was standing, he could reach out and turn on the big light in the living room, and then he would see the large suitcase lying beside the refrigerator, and half of my body that couldn't fit into the gap. My mind went blank with a buzz. Just when I thought fate was going to play tricks on me again, he tiptoed towards the guest room. He didn't turn on the light, and didn't notice the huge anomaly hidden in the dark. After about a minute, there came Ching Shuang Shuang's soft coquettish voice from the guest room. You're so bad. And Li Xiao's suppressed voice. She'll keep your voice down. Don't wake up that fat pig later. Are you sure she didn't notice? I feel that the fat pig was a bit strange today, but I can't put my finger on it. That fool is sound asleep with her head covered. Who knows what that pig-brained woman is thinking? Every time she brings you, my precious, here to be with me. Let me kiss you quickly. I've been missing you so much. No kissing. When are you going to break up with her? Every time I see that ugly pig face, I feel like vomiting. And you still call her wife in front of me. Get out of bed. Baby, don't be angry. I'll buy you that Chanel bag you took a fancy to last time as soon as I get the money. Be good. You said it. Don't go back on your word. Ha ha ha. Every word of the mockery from that shameless couple passed through the deathly, silent air around, and clearly reached my ears. I was so angry in that dirty gap that my whole body was trembling. So angry that every inch of my skin seemed to be burning and smoking. Mock me for being pig-brained? I went back to the master bedroom, stuffed Li Xiao's phone, which he had forgotten to take while rushing to have an affair, into my bag. I directly put on my pajamas, pulled the suitcase, and walked out of this house without looking back. The first thing I did after going out was to lock those two shameless people in the house. The second thing was to block Ching Shuang Shuang's WeChat and phone number. I really want to see who will realize that they are the pig-brained ones first in a few hours. 8. I returned to the rented house and locked the two-layer door. Looking at the room full of supplies, I finally exhaled the breath that had been pent up in my lungs and was about to burst. I kicked the suitcase aside, lay down on the new bed in the master bedroom, and stretched myself. I don't have to lie with that dirty man anymore. It feels so refreshing. What else is there to be angry about? The alarm clock rang precisely at 9 a.m. I woke up full of energy, sat up against the head of the bed, and took out the scumbag's phone. In my previous life, I had already cracked his password. In this life, he didn't even know that I had discovered his affair, let alone had time to change the password. I turned it on again, and successfully unlocked the screen. There were more than 100 call reminder text messages from Ching Shuang Shuang in the list. I smiled and walked to the balcony, comfortably lay down on the rocking chair, and put my eyes to the telescope that I had already set up. In the picture, Li Xiao was as irritable as a lion whose tail had been stepped on, and was bristling with anger. He was pacing around the room, and the floor was littered with things he had smashed in a complete mess. Cheng Shuang was beside him, pulling him while making phone calls, as if trying to comfort him. I turned on the bug receiver I bought from a black market stall in the decoration market, and immediately there came a stream of unprintable swear words. You dollar shoeing dollar. Don't let me catch you. I dollar. Oh my god, this continuous stream of foul language was really ear-polluting. I quickly turned it off. Li Xiao really was something. Now that the house was in such a mess, how could he receive guests later? I took out my own phone, and took pictures of all the conversations and small videos, between Li Xiao and Cheng Shuang in WeChat, which were like pornographic stories, and forwarded them to Cheng Shuang's current boyfriend, Su Chao. Cheng Shuang, in other things disappointed me, but her taste in choosing men never let me down. To put it nicely, she was infatuated with love. To put it bluntly, she was promiscuous. She had almost picked up all the men in the garbage heap. Otherwise, she wouldn't have hooked up with Li Xiao. When I regarded her as my closest girlfriend before, I really hated her for not being up to par. I didn't know how many times I had scolded her, but despite scolding, every time she was physically and mentally damaged by various scumbags, it was me who rushed to the front to stand up for her. I even got myself into a lot of trouble, lost my job several times, and moved several times. Fortunately, she didn't listen to me and found another scumbag, Su Chao, who was at a new level of scum. Su Chao really called back soon. I composed myself and answered the phone. Brother Chao, woo-woo, I want to apologize to you. No wonder you used to hit her. She really, woo-woo, I don't know what to do now. Brother Chao, please come and uphold justice. Su Chao roared so loudly on the phone that my eardrums almost burst. What the dollar guts does she have to cuckold me? See if I don't kill them. Send me your address right away. Keep an eye on them, and don't let them run away. I'm coming over now. 9. After hanging up the phone, I immediately sent Su Chao the detailed address and house number, and also told him where I had hidden the door key. The distance from the community where he lived was only a 10-minute drive. I didn't have to wait long, haha. I rubbed my hands in anticipation. Taking advantage of this gap, I got up and opened the suitcase I had brought back from the scumbag's house, and put the collected food into the refrigerator and cabinets. After finishing the sorting, I looked at the time. It was a few minutes to 10. Oh, the good show is about to start. I excitedly rushed to the balcony, turned on the receiver, adjusted the angle of the telescope, and looked towards the opposite side. Li Xiao had already tired himself out from making a scene. Now he was sitting on the sofa in the living room with a dark face. Cheng Shuang beside him was patting his back gently. Honey, don't be angry anymore. The locksmith will be here soon. As soon as the door is opened, I'll accompany you to the business hall to reissue a SIM card, and then buy you a new phone. I'll buy it for you. Don't be angry, honey TSK, I really don't understand. Is there something wrong with her brain? Why is she licking a swindler like this? Li Xiao irritably lifted his elbow and pushed Cheng Shuang away, but she wriggled and stuck to him again. Just then, the door was suddenly kicked open with a bang, and the locksmith Su Chao rushed into the room with murderous intent. Before that shameless couple could react, he grabbed Li Xiao's neck like a chicken and lifted him up from the sofa, then viciously threw him to the ground. That spot happened to be full of broken cup shards. Li Xiao lay on it, curling up his body in great pain. Before he could groan a few times, Su Chao sat on Li Xiao's body like a mountain and swung his fists, hitting the scumbag's head one after another. How dare you touch my woman? You dollar are tired of living. With sharp porcelain shards piercing his back, and being hit by fists as big as a casserole on his face. Sigh, just thinking about it gives me goosebumps. I feel sorry for the pain Li Xiao must be in. Cheng Shuang beside him probably also felt pain heartache. She started to reach out and pull Su Chao. It would have been better if she hadn't pulled. As soon as she did, Su Chao remembered that there was another slutty woman to deal with. He got off Li Xiao, whose face was swollen like a pig's head, and slapped Cheng Shuang in the face. I think you're also tired of living. Have I not beaten you enough usually? Huh, giving you too much leeway. Then he slapped her 2 more resounding slaps. Cheng Shuang was slapped until her nosebleed gushed out. She lost her balance and fell to the ground, crying with red snot all over her face. Just as I was busy tracking every wonderful scene, and every expression through the telescope, my phone rang. I reluctantly answered it. Hello? Hello? Is this Miss Xu? This is Xiaoyang. I'm almost downstairs in your community. Can we sign the contract normally today? Oh, I was so happy watching that I forgot about this little supporting actor, who came to offer himself up. 10. I stood up and looked downstairs. Yang Jie was about to step into the gate of building C where Li Xiao lived. I quickly called out. Xiaoyang, I'm not at home. I went to the bank early this morning. Yang Jie stopped. But I'm on my way back. I can reach the community in about 10 minutes. You can just sit on the chair directly opposite the gate of building C and wait for me. Don't move, or I won't be able to find you later. Yang Jie readily agreed on the phone, and turned around to sit on that chair. After a while, an old man carrying a violin case walked towards that chair, and talked to Yang Jie about something. I knew that old man. He used to accompany his wife for a walk in grocery shopping every day. After they returned to the community, they would habitually sit on that chair to rest. A few months ago, the old lady suddenly died of a heart attack, leaving the old man alone. Every day at about the same time, he would come back to that chair and play The Butterfly Lovers on his violin to remember his wife. The people in the community would usually tacitly leave that chair empty for him. But at this moment, Yang Jie completely took on a hooligan attitude of first come, first served. He crossed his chest, shook his feet, and turned his head to look elsewhere. After seeing that the negotiation was fruitless, the old man was dejected and walked back with a hunched back, entering the gate of the adjacent building. About 5 minutes later, several rabid zombies suddenly rushed out from behind Yang Jie and bit at his carotid artery. Blood spurted out all over the ground. At the same time, shrill screams came from every corner of the community garden. The entire garden became restless. The living people were chased around by the zombies, and the bitten people quickly transformed into new zombies to bite others. In just over 10 minutes, there were all mutated zombies downstairs, and no human figures could be seen. The time of the zombie outbreak was exactly the same as in my previous life. The only difference was that I made up for the regret of my previous life and saved the infatuated old man. And I also conveniently gave a box lunch to the swindler. This feeling is really great. I happily hummed a song and aimed the telescope at the opposite side. The three of them were standing on the balcony looking down at the moment, their faces full of horror. They should have all witnessed the terrifying scenes of the zombies mutating and biting people downstairs. Li Zhao's eyes, swollen like a purple steamed bun, showed full of resentment, staring fixedly at a certain place downstairs. I used the telescope to look in the direction he was staring at. Oh, so he saw the freshly turned zombie, one-armed Xiaoyang. Still have the mood to feel sorry for your brother, Li Xiao? I advise you to worry more about yourself. Staying at home means living with Su Chao, and there's no food at all. Going out will be like in my previous life, being bitten to pieces by zombies in the corridor. I think your current situation is not as good as your brother's. 11. Since Li Xiao could be a pig butchering scam swindler, his reaction ability was still a bit stronger than the other two fools. Just like now, after the three of them returned to the room in a daze, he was the first to realize his situation. He plopped down on his knees in front of Su Chao, started crying bitterly, and tried to shift the internal conflict onto me. Brother Chao, listen to my explanation. It's all that bitch Xu Ying's fault. I don't know what she told you, but she took my phone. Now there's no way to prove my innocence. It's all up to her words. Don't be deceived by this bitch. Then he rushed to the refrigerator and opened the door. 11. Look, she took away all the food in the house. Isn't it obvious? This is clearly a preset trap, and she's calculated you in it too. Brother Chao, don't let her get away with it. Su Chao, with well-developed muscles but a simple mind, was incited by Li Zhao's few words until his head was almost smoking. He immediately took out his phone to make a call. The phone rang. I quickly did 20 high, knees on the spot, cleared my throat, and answered with a sobbing voice as if out of breath. It's so scary. Zombies. I almost got bitten to death by zombies. Woo woo. Brother Chao, are you okay at home? Su Chao was stunned by my sudden concern for a moment, but soon regained his interrogating tone. Xu Ying, are you setting a trap to play tricks on me? I also retorted with a justified tone. What tricks am I playing on you? Does Li Xiao not admit to cuckolding you? You saw those small videos. How could they be faked? Should I hide it from you and watch that bitch Ching Shuang continue to deceive you? And now there are zombies all over the street. I almost couldn't escape and got bitten to death. You're safe and sound in my house. But you actually say I'm setting a trap for you. Su Chao clearly sounded a bit lacking in confidence on the phone. Then, why is there no food at your house at all? I feigned even more anger. I don't cook at home usually. Every time Ching Shuang came during mealtimes, didn't I take her out to eat? All the food at home had expired and was thrown away. Is this such a big deal that you have to question me about it? I was originally worried that you had nothing to eat at my house, and planned to ask a friend to find a way to send you some. Now it seems that you and Li Xiao are in cahoots, and are trying to make me angry? So the three of you are getting along well, and I'm the only one being played. As soon as Su Chao heard that I was going to send him food, he quickly pishow. No Xu Ying. Look at you, why are you so impatient? I was just asking casually. I hung up without listening to the rest of his words and turned my phone to do not disturb mode. In the telescope's view, Su Chao was extremely anxious. He pressed the phone to redial several times. When he found that he still couldn't get through to my phone, he was so angry that he kicked Li Xiao, who was kneeling beside him, to the ground. It's you who's causing trouble here, making me starve. I'll kick you to death, you troublemaker. He kicked Li Xiao in the stomach several more times to vent his anger, until Li Xiao couldn't even cry out in pain. Li Xiao. Now whoever has supplies is the boss. The dirty water you spilled has no threat to me at all. But being stepped on by me in return isn't something that can be resolved by just a few explanations. Didn't you mock me for being pig-brained? You can't even outwit a pig-brained person. How pathetic. 12. In the next 3 days, the communication signal didn't go out. Su Chao kept trying to contact me. Every time he couldn't get through, he would beat Li Xiao and Cheng Shuang to vent his anger. But on the 4th day, the network was cut off, and the phone couldn't be dialed. In a state of extreme hunger, Su Chao also lost the strength to beat people, and the three of them slumped on the living room floor together. In contrast to their hell, like life, my life on the opposite side was like heaven. Not only did I have 3 meals a day with meat and vegetables, but my landlady, Sister Yao, often used her son's drone to send me the steamed buns, dumplings, pancakes, sweet and sour pork that she made herself. She said that if it weren't for me, her family would never have been so complete. Speaking of the fate between people, it's really strange. She had only met me once, but could believe me so completely. On the day she signed the rental contract, she received my reminder. When she got back, she started stockpiling supplies, filling her house to the brim, almost leaving no space to walk. On the morning of the zombie outbreak, she wailed and blocked the door, not allowing her husband to go to work or her son to go to school. Her family thought she was crazy after being stimulated by something, but they couldn't persuade her, and could only go along with her. But not long after, screams came from the garden below. The whole family was trembling as they watched from the balcony. Her mother-in-law even fainted and only woke up after taking a quick-acting heart-saving pill. Now both her family and mine can live without any pressure in this apocalypse thanks to the supplies. Although I'm living much better than in my previous life, it doesn't mean that revenge ends here. On the contrary, if the scumbag and the mistress only end up starving to death, I don't think it's satisfying at all. I want them to taste the pain that I once tasted. At 4 a.m., the preset alarm clock rang. While the 3 people across the way were still sleeping, I quietly put a little food in a plastic bag and hung it on the robotic arm of the drone. Li Xiao's balcony happened to have no anti-theft net. I flew the drone over, placed the supplies on the ground, and then withdrew the drone. I also sent a screenshot of a message to Su Chao's phone via airdrop. Take good care of them. I'll send more food later. After doing all this, I went back to catch up on sleep. When I woke up again, it was already past 9 a.m. I quickly ran to the balcony to continue watching the progress. Su Chao was sitting on the sofa, shaking his feet, and eating instant noodles. Li Xiao and Cheng Shuangshuang were kneeling in front of him. Cheng Shuangshuang stared at the bucket of noodles and begged pitifully. Honey, I'm so hungry too. After you finish the noodles, can you leave me some soup? Su Chao sneered, finished the last mouthful of noodles, and put the noodle bucket on the ground. You can drink it, but you only deserve to drink it on the ground. Cheng Shuangshuang, who had been hungry for a day and a night, no longer cared about her image. She buzzed Disang and wolfed it down. Before she could take a few bites, Li Xiao pushed her aside and snatched it away. Cheng Shuangshuang probably didn't expect that Li Xiao, who had always called her baby, would fight with her for a few mouthfuls of instant noodle soup. She started wailing and tearing at Li Xiao's clothes, fighting with him. They were facing sideways to me, and I couldn't see the fight clearly through the telescope. But soon, I received a clear frontal video sent by Su Chao via airdrop. In the video, the two of them, with their hair and clothes as messy as beggars, were lying on the ground, vying with their mouths to reach the instant noodle bucket. The noodle soup was smeared all over their faces. They were as embarrassed as could be. It seemed that after a few days of hunger, Su Chao already knew who to listen to and who to stand with. Every mealtime from then on, I could receive the video he sent of the shameless couple, getting along affectionately while eating. I have to say, it was really appetizing to watch, even more so than a food-eating live stream. 64 days after the outbreak of the zombie virus, before I could enjoy the comfortable days for long, there was a sudden turn of events. At around 9 a.m., several drones flew into the community, and the loudspeakers on them automatically played a looped broadcast. The antibody vaccine for the zombie virus has been successfully developed. The government will carry out the zombie cleaning work as soon as possible. Please continue to stay at home and take good protection. The dawn of victory is just around the corner. The survivors in the community started cheering and jumping for joy when they heard the broadcast. But I wasn't happy at all. In my previous life, I died on the 3rd day of the virus outbreak, so I didn't know what happened later and how long it lasted. In this life, I've lived well for more than 2 months. Except for the communication network being cut off, the water and electricity were still supplied normally. I had a faint premonition that this virus was not completely out of the government's control, and might not last too long. But I really didn't expect that the vaccine would be developed by the country in such a short time. With the vaccine, even if humans are bitten by zombies, they won't get sick. As long as the survivors are vaccinated in each cleared area, there will be more and more people to clean up the zombies, and the progress will be faster and faster. That is to say, at the slowest, it will take about half a month to clean up the zombies across the country. The current situation is very bleak for me. If those 3 people across the way survive until the end of the apocalypse and regain their freedom, the first thing they will do is definitely to join hands to deal with me. No way. From today on, I have to closely monitor their every move and find a way to make them have internal conflicts. Unexpectedly, after hearing this news, Li Xiao, without waiting for me to take action, was ready to strike first. First, at night, while Su Chao was asleep, he secretly tried to win over Cheng Shuangshuang. Our hard days are about to come to an end, but those 2 bitches, Xu Ying and Su Chao, must be dealt with now. Although Cheng Shuangshuang had already fallen out with Li Xiao, when she heard about dealing with Su Chao and me, she nodded vigorously, gritting her teeth in agreement. Then Li Xiao started whispering in Cheng Shuangshuang's ear. Because the voice was too low, I couldn't hear it clearly. But the next day, they didn't take any action. On the 4th day, when the food stock was completely consumed and Su Chao couldn't get any response no matter how he contacted me, Li Xiao slowly said, "Brother Chao, I don't think you should wait anymore. That bitch Xu Ying knows that the zombies are about to be cleared, and everyone will regain their freedom. To prevent us from taking revenge on her, she definitely won't send any more food. She wants to starve us all to death." Su Chao, who was in a state of hunger and annoyance, was enraged by Li Xiao's words and jumped up in anger. "That bitch dares to play tricks on me like this. If I get out, the first thing I'll do is kill her." Li Xiao immediately chimed in. "Brother Chao, I think if we want to take action, we have to do it now. Think about it. After the order is restored, whatever you do will be illegal. Only at a time like this, whether one more person or one less person, no one will care. Moreover, since she dared to send food before, she must have stockpiled a huge amount of supplies. If we kill her, all those things will be ours. Even if we eat to our heart's content every day, we might not finish them by the day the zombies are cleared. Anyway, staying at home is also starving to death. It's better to take a desperate gamble. What do you think, Brother Chow? 14. I secretly laughed in my heart. Where were they going to take a desperate gamble? Even if they knew I was nearby, the community was so big. Were they going to search room by room? But unexpectedly, Li Xiao had a trick up his sleeve. After Su Chao agreed to kill me with him, they immediately pulled the living room curtains to block my line of sight. Only the bug transmitted Li Xiao's lowered voice. Once I woke up in the middle of the night, and happened to see the supplies being sent from the window opposite by a drone. Then yesterday, I secretly used the computer to check the location of my phone, and found that it was also in the opposite building. Based on these 2 points, I can basically confirm that bitch Shuiying is hiding in the room directly opposite. Let's take all the defensive weapons we can and directly fight our way through to her house, and force her to open the door. If she doesn't open it for us, we'll smash the door and make sure she can't live either. After hearing their plan, I looked downstairs. There were indeed not many zombies wandering in the community garden now, and they were also in a state of hunger and moved slowly. But just because of this, they thought they could smoothly reach my door? They underestimated me Shuiying too much. I immediately cut my hand with a knife, and smeared all the blood on a piece of clothing, then tied the clothing to the drone. When I heard the 3 of them go out through the bug, I launched the drone in a race against time. The drone started flying around the entire community garden. The strong smell of blood on the clothing stimulated the bloodthirsty desire of the zombies below. Their state became more and more frenzied, and they rushed after the drone one after another. I flew the drone to Building C, and the 3-layer deep zombie horde immediately surrounded the gate of Building C. Just as I was about to be happy that the plan was going smoothly, I suddenly thought no. To come from Building C, they could also take the underground parking lot. It was more likely that they would choose that better defensible route. I quickly flew the drone into the entrance of the underground parking lot. After flying for a while, in a corner of the screen, I saw the 3 of them just killing a zombie, and getting up to run in the direction of the gate of the first floor underground of my building. I lifted the drone, and parked it on a nearby crossbeam. The zombie horde that followed the drone was attracted by the movement of the 3 of them, and started surging towards them. I clearly saw on the screen that Li Xiao, who was running at the back, was the first to turn around and find that there was a zombie horde chasing them. He hurriedly patted Cheng Shuangshuang's shoulder in front of him. After Cheng Shuangshuang turned around and understood his meaning, the fire axe and kitchen knife in their hands, one on each side, simultaneously hacked at Su Chao's legs. Su Chao let out a painful scream and fell to the ground. The wounds on his legs left 2 deep bloodstains on the ground. The bloodthirsty zombie horde behind them immediately swarmed up and surrounded and submerged him. Desperate roars mixed with foul language from Su Chao echoed in the parking lot. 15. And that shameless couple, after sacrificing their decoy, successfully ran into the gate on the first basement floor, closed the door heavily and turned around, disappearing into the corridor. I really didn't expect it. After 2 months, that shameless couple reappeared in front of me, pouring out their so-called profound love for me. Li Xiao slapped the glass of the corridor door, with tears of longing in his eyes. Honey, I finally found you. I'm so glad to see that you're alive. I really miss you so much. I will compensate you 1,000, or even 10,000 times for the mistakes I made before. Please give me a chance to make it up to you. Open the door, honey. Let me in and hug you. Cheng Shuangshuang also lay on the glass crying bitterly. Ying, you're the best sister in my life. If it weren't for the desire to see you again, I definitely couldn't have held on. I was just muddle-headed for a moment. You can forgive me, right? You once said that there's no man in the world who can compare to the deep bond between us sisters. Oh, so touching. I leaned against the doorframe, watching them sincerely admit their mistakes. I wiped the tears from the corners of my eyes and slowly said, since you both realize your mistakes, I won't pursue it anymore. Li Xiao and Cheng Shuangshuang beamed with joy upon hearing the first sentence. But, to avoid the same betrayal from happening again, I won't accept living together with the 3 of us in the future. Li Xiao frowned. What do you mean? I sighed. It means that I can only let one of you in to live with me. But you're both the most important people in my life, and I can't decide. Li Xiao immediately understood and expressed his loyalty with a sincere look in his eyes. Then just let me in, honey. I'll marry you in the future, and spend my whole life making it up to you. It was that bitch Cheng Shuangshuang who seduced me before. Otherwise, I would never have thought of doing anything to betray you. Cheng Shuangshuang stared at Li Xiao in disbelief and hurriedly distanced herself. Ying, don't believe him. He got me drunk and seduced me when I was not in my right mind. You can't believe what a scumbag says. You should believe your good sister. And he was just grabbed by a zombie. He'll turn into one soon. Before Cheng Shuangshuang could finish her words, Li Xiao grabbed her neck viciously. You bitch, what are you talking nonsense about? Where was I grabbed? It was just a scratch. I followed Cheng Shuangshuang's words and looked. There were indeed 3 obvious scratch marks on Li Xiao's arm, and they were bleeding. He must have been feeling guilty, so he decided to play his trump card. He grabbed Cheng Shuangshuang's neck, and pushed her all the way to the stairwell. You're the one who's sorry for my wife. I'll punish you, you bitch, on her behalf. Go to hell. Then he threw her deep into the stairs and slammed the door of the stairwell shut. He remained indifferent even as Chung Shuang Shuang cried and shouted outside, banging on the door and kicking it, and even when she attracted nearby zombies and was bitten, letting out painful screams. This cruel behavior was exactly the same as when he threw me out in my previous life. After Li Xiao finished all this, he turned around and said to me gently outside the corridor door, "Honey, I've avenged you. Please open the door for me now." I walked over with a smile, holding the key, and unlocked the door. Seeing this, he happily tried to slip in through the crack of the door. At this moment when he was off guard, I suddenly grabbed the high-voltage electric shock baton that I had been hiding behind my back and thrust it into his stomach. The high-voltage current immediately made him lose most of his consciousness, and he fell to the ground in convulsions. I squatted down and continued to give him electric shock treatment, and said to him with a smile, "Honey, thank you for avenging me, but you're in a very dangerous situation now, so I can only treat you specially. I believe that the government will definitely find a way to save you later." 16. 10 days later, the doorbell of my house rang. "Hello, ma'am. We were sent by the government to vaccinate the survivors against the zombie virus. How many survivors are there in your house?" I happily opened the door and reported truthfully to the staff. "There are 2 survivors in my house, me and my fiancé." "Then please ask your fiancé to come out. We need to register the information, and then we can give you the vaccination." I showed a Wei-Nam look. He's probably not convenient to come out. His situation is a bit special. Upon hearing this, the staff member turned around and nodded to the back. Then 2 other burly staff members stepped forward and stood on either side of me. "Ma'am, please show us your fiancé's situation." I was very puzzled. "What are you doing?" The staff member didn't answer me directly. "You just need to cooperate with our work, and we will definitely provide you with help." I had no choice but to pick up the key, lead them to the door of the small room, tell them to be careful, and then open the door. Li Xiao, who had turned into a zombie, was wandering in the room. When he saw the door open and a room full of delicacies outside, he instantly went crazy and pounced forward. But before he could get close, 2 policemen in explosion-proof suits rushed out from behind me. One skillfully wrapped a net around his head, and the other chopped off his head with a machete. Their movements were so smooth that not much blood even splattered. The 2 staff members beside me pulled me, who was stunned, away from the scene, and their colleagues stayed behind to disinfect and clean up. The staff member holding the registration form comforted me and said, "Your fiancé has turned into a zombie, and the vaccine is of no use to him anymore. We have dealt with many such situations, and you're not an exception. So, try to accept this fact gradually. Everyone has a hard time. In the future, when you encounter such a situation, we hope you can deal with it rationally. Thank you for your cooperation with our work." I nodded with tears in my eyes. "Thank you for your counseling. I will definitely correct my mistakes and deal with such situations rationally in the future." After the room was disinfected and cleaned up, they checked the remaining 2 rooms, confirmed that I didn't have any other family members hidden away, and then sent a female staff member to check if I had any wounds scratched by zombies. Only then did they give me the vaccination. Another 10 days passed, and the communication network began to recover. The news that all zombies in the country have been cleared, and all survivors have been vaccinated, occupied the headlines of major social media platforms. As soon as Sister Yao saw the news, she called me. "Sister, did you see the news? Gosh, it's so great. We're finally free. Come to my house for a meal to celebrate. My whole family is waiting to meet you." Although I lost my fiancé, I gained a sister who cared about me every day, and a whole family of real relatives. Looking at it this way, I didn't lose out, right?